Hey guys, and welcome back to Taylor Tech. This week we are going to be looking at mixing. So we're going to go through the basic concepts of how to create a mix, how to take a microphone or other input or multiple inputs, feed it into a mixer, and come up with something that sounds good at the end. Essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be focusing on setting a good gain structure so that we can maximize our headroom while minimizing the noise that ends up in the mix. So as you can see, this is not our normal view when we're doing shots of the mixer. That's because I want you to be able to see me and what I'm doing as well. Step one is to take your board and make sure that it is zeroed. What we mean by a zeroed board is we want everything turned down, everything muted, or every button unpressed. So obviously I can't do this with the entire mixer since I'm actually using it for the purposes of this video, but I'll go ahead and do it with channel 1, which is my desktop condenser mic. And the same concept that goes with channel 1 goes for the rest of the board. Some of the busing functions over here we won't be able to affect, but we'll do what we can. The way that we zero the board is making sure that our gain is all the way down, any compression or other effects are all the way down, EQs are all pointed straight up, which is 0. All of our buses, our aux buses are down. Make sure any buttons are lifted, fader is all the way down, and balance is set to the center. This is a zeroed channel now. The second step is going to be to get everything plugged in place where you want it. So I've already got my condenser plugged in. I'm going to move it so that it's placed where I will be talking into it, and I'm going to sit sort of like I would when I'm talking into it. Ooh, don't kick the camera, Taylor. All right. The next step is actually setting the gain. So to set gain, what we're going to do is we're going to put the mic in, or we're going to put the channel in what's called pre-fader listen mode, or PFL mode. Some mixers won't have PFL, they'll only have a solo function, or they won't have any solo or PFL functions at all. If that is the case for you, if you have no solo or PFL, set your main bus to 0, set your channel that you're trying to get ready, or that you're about to set gain on to 0, and then set your gain levels. If you have a solo but no PFL, then ignore your main mix, set your fader to 0, and solo it. If you have PFL, then you can make sure your PFL mode is engaged and solo the channel. So now you'll notice immediately that I only get a mono channel here on the meter. That's because that's showing me what is happening with the channel that I am soloing. Same thing for PFL, right? If I'm using PFL, then it's only going to show me that one channel. Now what I want to do is I want to set an appropriate gain level. The way I do this is by increasing gain while using a normal speaking voice until things sound normal. So I'm talking into the mic and I'm giving it a little bit of gain. There we go. Now we're getting to where we're nice and loud. And that's a good level right there. I like that level. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I'm not peaking it. So the way we do that is we make a very loud sound. Usually a percussive sound is best because it's going to give an impulse that will give the mic its maximum signal level. So we're going to clap. Now we note that we went up above 0 here. So the goal of a PFL level set is to get to 0 dBV on our meter here. We're going to back off the gain just a touch. There we go. That's good. And we're right there. We're at that good level set that we were looking for. Well, what we want to do next is we want to disengage the PFL. All right, we're in solo mode. And solo is going to be a post-fader listen. So PFL, pre-fader listen. Solo, post-fader is going to be, well, usually it's labeled after-fader listen to avoid confusion, but that is the after-fader level. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to move that up to 0 dBV, and we should have the same volume level that we had previously. You'll note that I'm actually getting signal on both channels now, and that is because I'm actually putting signal out with this mic. So you're actually, right now it's not routed, so you're not hearing it, this mic that I'm soloing in the main mix. We'll get to that in a second. Okay, so now we've got a level set. We're happy with our level set, and we're going to go ahead and start working on our EQ. So with EQ, the goal is not so much to correct errors with equipment or such as like removing buzzes and hums. It's more to create a natural sound. Oftentimes a microphone will not produce a fully natural sound, what you would expect from a performer or what you would expect from an instrument, because of the room that it's in, because of maybe some issue with gear or something like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our EQ to create a natural sound through this mic. So the first thing we're going to do that is we're going to take big sweeps with each of the pots on the EQ to understand exactly what it is that they're doing. So we're listening to this the whole time, and we're understanding, okay, so that what exactly range is that affecting? We're going to do the same thing with the next one. Now the next one's kind of a special case, is what's called a parametric EQ. The first fader, the top one, adjusts the level, and the bottom one adjusts the frequency. So what I would do is I'd set this high, then sweep my frequencies. The whole time I'm giving it signal so I can hear what it's doing. I'm going to set it low. I'm going to do the same thing again. What we're doing here is we're testing it to see exactly what is it going to affect when I make changes. Same thing with the lows. We're going to do the lows, increase the lows, remove them again, take them all the way out. We're just getting an understanding. Now I've got a good understanding of what these EQ functions are going to do to my voice with the microphone, so I'm going to go ahead and start making adjustments to where it sounds good to me. I feel like this mic is actually pretty natural. It doesn't take a lot of adjustment. I usually take a little bit of highs off. It's a little bright. So I'm happy with that EQ. I think that is a effective reproduction of my voice. Before we go on to the next thing, I want to give one note about EQing your own voice. Something that most people don't realize is that you do not hear your own voice in a natural manner. You actually end up hearing not only the sound that's produced when you talk, but the resonance within your own head. And then what this does is this makes your own voice sound deeper to you than it naturally is. So you have to be careful of that. You want to make sure that you don't add a bunch of low with your EQ when you're EQing a microphone, because what you're doing is you're reproducing the voice as you hear it in your head, but not the voice as other people hear it. So it's not really a natural sound. So what I try and do, if I find myself adding a lot of low when I'm EQing my own voice, what I'll do is I'll go back, I'll re-zero it, start over. The final thing we'll do, once we've done that for every channel that we're going to be mixing together, we'll set our routing. Is everything going to the main bus? Is it going to the sub bus? Or the sub bus is going to the main bus, that kind of thing, if you have such routing options on your board. And then we will start setting levels. So in this case, let's say I've got 2 vocals, 2 guitars, and a keyboard. What I would do, I would assume that all of these are just about evenly at 0. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to mix it. The main thing you need to understand when you're working on setting levels is you're not setting levels from your main mix. You're not setting levels from your sub mix unless you have things grouped within your sub mix, to like vocals on one sub and instruments on another. So what we're going to do when we're setting levels, first we're going to set the balance. So say I've got my 2 vocalists, one is stage left, one is stage right. Same thing for the guitars. I'm not going to screw with that one because that's the actual mic we're listening to. And then my keyboard is right in the middle, so I'm going to leave him in the middle. So I've got them all panned to their appropriate fields, and now I'm going to start adjusting levels. As we're going through and setting levels, let's start with the guitars. Let's pretend, so we've got 2 vocalists that are playing, a acoustic guitar and an electric guitar, and then the keyboard. So let's say that the electric guitar is just out of control and it's loud. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by bringing its level down in the mix. I'm not going to boost everybody else up. I'm going to bring it down until it sounds like it's about right in the mix. Now what I want to do next, once that's under control, is make sure that I have my vocalist so they can be heard. There's a saying that you'll hear from people who do live audio. 90% is making sure you don't get feedback. 9% is making sure that your vocalist can be heard, and 1% is everything else. If you don't have feedback and your vocalist can be heard, you've done 99% of your job. Next, we're going to make sure the vocalist can be heard. Let's say that all the instruments are just a little bit overpowering. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring those instruments back. So all those instruments came back a little bit. Whoops. And my vocalists stay the same. Now, if one vocalist is a little more powerful than the other, I may give them a bump, or I may bring the other vocalist back, depending on what I'm doing. If I've just barely got my vocalist right, I may actually give one vocalist a bump, just to make sure that I don't bring the other vocalist too low and get them overridden by the instruments. At this point, I should have a really good mix. I should be jamming along with the band, and I can just make minor tweaks as they go throughout the performance, because some songs, certain instruments will be louder or softer or more prominent or less prominent. That's not like a live music scenario. When it comes to something like streaming, it's going to be a little bit different. You're going to have probably the one mic that you're talking on, one channel that is bringing in your main game audio, another channel that's bringing in your, otherwise audio from the PC, for communications and things like that. And you're going to have maybe an aux bus that you're sending audio out separate from your main mic. Okay, the very last thing that I want to go through is regarding inputs and outputs on PCs. So this is something that's generally really poorly understood when it comes to how to set levels. A lot of times people will just slide the sliders all the way to the right, and that is the wrong, absolute very wrong thing to do. What you really want to be doing is you want to be making sure that you're getting an appropriate level, but you are not peaking it out. So what we'll see is that, for the USB output, now this is a digital output from the mixer to the PC. I only have this set at about 92. That's because if I go much higher than this, I start to get a lot of static. Same thing goes for when it comes to playback. So generally I don't set things all the way to their max level. I try and set things just a hair under 100 because what you do is you reduce the chance of having noise. When it comes to things like a line in, a lot of times I will set things to a much lower level. So line ins tend to be noisier than line outs for whatever reason. I not figured that one out myself, but you want to make sure you have no mic boost, and you want to make sure that the mic in is set somewhere either in the middle or below the middle of the slider. All right, guys, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, throw a like on it. Also, leave any comments for me in the comment section below. If you're new to this channel and you want to see more content like this in the future, hit that subscribe button and we'll see you in the next one. Also, there's links in the description to places you can find me around the internet, Twitter, my gaming website, Reddit. So come join me in those places and I'd love to interact with you. Also, if this video was helpful to you and you know other people who would find it helpful, share it out to them. Sharing really helps me. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.